Imagine being treated like you're invisible just because you're poor. Now imagine risking everything, your job, your freedom, your future, to save the child of the very man who looks down on you. This is the story of a poor black maid who stole a millionaire's Lamborghini not for greed, but to save his dying son. What happened next shocked the entire country. Before we dive into this unforgettable story of courage, betrayal, and redemption, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell icon, and stay tuned till the end, because this story will leave your heart pounding and your jaw on the floor. It all began on a bright Monday morning in Los Angeles, when 28-year-old Cassandra Brown, a quiet but fiercely determined black maid, walked through the golden gates of the Vanderbilt estate for the first time in her new uniform. Hired by the staff agency to clean for billionaire real estate mogul Griffin Vanderbilt, Cassandra had no idea that this job would thrust her into the biggest moral dilemma of her life and change everything she knew about courage, injustice, and the power of one selfless act. Griffin Vanderbilt was the kind of man tabloids worshipped, ruthless, arrogant, draped in designer suits, always surrounded by flashing cameras, exclusive parties, and billion-dollar deals. But at home, he was emotionally absent, a stranger. To his own 6-year-old son Oliver, who was raised mostly by nannies and staff, Cassandra, despite being treated like furniture by most of the household, immediately bonded with the boy over storybooks and coloring. Oliver had an unusual glow about him, bright eyes, a soft laugh, but behind the sparkle hid a secret illness, a rare heart condition that his doctors were struggling to stabilize. Griffin ignored most of it, throwing money at private physicians, but never spending a single night beside his son's hospital bed, even when emergencies struck. Cassandra, having lost her own brother to a similar condition when she was just 14, took Oliver's suffering personally. She would read to him during breaks, sneak him his favorite cookies, and even pray silently beside him when he had episodes. The boy would whisper to her, "I wish you were my mommy," and it tore at her soul. One fateful Wednesday, just before dusk, everything changed. Oliver collapsed during an afternoon walk on the estate grounds, while Cassandra was clearing the poolside area. The nanny panicked and froze. The guards called for Griffin, who was in a board meeting across town, unreachable. Cassandra, remembering her brother's last moments, knew there was no time to waste. She screamed for help, but everyone hesitated until her eyes locked on the glossy black Lamborghini Huracan parked by the fountain. The keys were still inside, left arrogantly by Griffin just minutes earlier. Without thinking, Cassandra scooped Oliver into her arms, jumped into the luxury vehicle barefoot and trembling, and sped down the winding driveway like a possessed spirit. She had no license, no GPS, and no experience with sports cars, but her instincts blazed. She drove 90 miles per hour down Sunset Boulevard, dodging traffic, honking furiously. Ignoring the screeching tires, screams, and judgmental stares, she reached the Children's Hospital in 14 minutes flat, Oliver barely clinging to consciousness. Doctors rushed in. Code blue. For the next 2 hours, Cassandra waited in the corridor covered in sweat, dirt, and engine grease. Then came the sirens, police cars swarming in. 2 officers arrested her on the spot for grand theft auto. She sobbed, trying to explain, but the law didn't care. Meanwhile, news broke that a maid stole a Lamborghini and endangered a child. Paparazzi swarmed. Griffin arrived 40 minutes later, fuming with rage, unaware that his son's life had just been saved. He demanded prosecution, called her a reckless criminal, called the press, called his lawyer. But when the doctor stepped out and said, if that child had arrived 10 minutes later, he'd be dead, the silence was deafening. Griffin's face froze. The doctor added, whoever brought him here saved his life. Slowly, the truth unraveled. A nurse confirmed Cassandra's identity. Surveillance footage confirmed her heroics. And then Oliver woke up. His first words were, "Where's Cassie?" Griffin looked shattered, like a man staring at the ruins of his own soul. Public opinion flipped overnight. Social media exploded with hashtags like #HeroMaid and #LamborghiniAngel. Protesters rallied outside the police station demanding her release. "She saved a life," they chanted. The video of her arrest went viral, her handcuffed beside the Lamborghini, sobbing, while paramedics fought to save Oliver. The day dropped. Charges within 24 hours under intense public pressure. Cassandra was released, but the trauma remained. She refused all interviews, stayed silent, and quietly returned to her tiny apartment in South LA. But the world wouldn't let her story fade. People donated to her GoFundMe, which passed $2 million in days. Celebrities spoke out in support. And then something no one expected. Griffin Vanderbilt himself showed up at her door, holding Oliver in his arms, followed by a TV crew, apologizing on national television. He cried, admitted his neglect. Cassandra taught him more about love and sacrifice than he ever knew. He offered her a public apology, and then privately, something bigger. "Cassie, I want you to raise Oliver with me, as his legal guardian." The media gasped. Cassandra broke down. She declined the offer at first, knowing the damage, the pain, the spotlight. But after talking to Oliver in private and seeing the boy's tears, she agreed on her terms. She would co-raise him, but not as a maid, as a partner in parenting. Griffin, humbled, agreed, but the story didn't end there. Griffin made another decision. He offered Cassandra a 50% stake in his luxury childcare startup that was inspired by her instincts. She went from Maid to Millionaire in a year, started a foundation in her brother's name for children with heart conditions. She was featured on Time magazine's Women of the Year. Yet she never let fame change her. She still visited her old neighborhood, funded education programs, and gave speeches in public schools about doing the right thing, even when the world tells you you're nobody. In her words, saving Oliver wasn't a decision, it was a heartbeat. "If being poor means knowing how to love, I'll wear that badge with pride." Her final message to the world was simple. Sometimes to save a life, you have to risk your own, and sometimes the person society looks down on is the one who saves it. So if this story inspired you, moved you, or opened your eyes, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because the world needs more stories where heart beats money and humanity wins.